The fortunes of Ukachi began to turn not long after. During the next wrestling festival, Ukachi, who had started acting as if he were the next champion of the village, entered the wrestling competition. Likely to bolster his standing, he faced a stronger opponent, and in the bout, Ukachi not only lost disgracefully, but he also suffered a terrible injury. The other wrestler flipped him, and Ukachi landed with a sickening crack on his back. The crowd gasped. Ukachi couldn't get up. His legs were limp. He had damaged his spine, leaving him crippled from the waist down. Though the villagers sympathized outwardly, after all, it was an accident in sports. Some elders muted that it was Chi, personal destiny at work. Perhaps a punishment for something known only to the gods. Ukachi's pride was shattered. Now he was confined mostly to his hut, dependent on others to move around. The land he had grabbed from Obidik lay untended and began to return to bush. Meanwhile, Eze's illness grew worse. He was bedridden, racked by fevers that caused him to rant in delirium. In his ravings, he often spoke Obidike's names and babbled about blood and guilt. People attending to him caught snippets like, "It was us, we did it," which puzzled them. Eze's old mother, desperate to save her son, decided to summon a powerful Dibia known for healing and seeing the unseen. The Dibia, upon observing Eze's condition and hearing his blabbling, suspected there was a spiritual wrongdoing at the root. The Dibia performed divination with kola nuts and consulted the spirit world for answers. After the rite, he confronted Eze, who was lucid at that moment. "There was a dark secret tormenting your soul. If you want to live, you must confess and seek forgiveness. The gods show me that an innocent suffering stains your hand." Eze burst into tears at these words. The weight was too much to bear. He felt death's cold hand already on him and feared eternal punishment in the spirit world if he died with this sin. With the Dibia's support, Eze managed to get up the next morning, leaning on a stick, and headed to King Ahamadike's palace. A town crier was sent out to summon elders and witnesses. Word spread quickly that Eze claimed he had an important revelation regarding Obidike's case. In the palace courtyard, under the mid-morning sun, Eze stood, trembling like a leaf, before the king and assembled villagers. Ukachi was carried in by two young men so he too could hear, and perhaps refute if he dared. Aboma was not initially present. She was at home, but Nneka ran to fetch her, urging, "Nne, come. Something is happening about Obidike." Aboma's heart raced as she hurried to the palace, not daring to imagine what it could be. With a cracked voice loud enough for all to hear, Eze confessed everything. He spared no detail. How jealousy of Obidike had festered in him and Ukachi. How they paid the evil Dibia to cause Aboma's pregnancy, causing the miscarriage. A collective gasp, then an enraged murmur rippled through the listeners. Some women burst into tears of shock and empathy, realizing the depth of malice that had befallen an innocent couple. Eze continued, each word like a dagger he drove into his own heart. He recounted the plot to frame Obidike with Mmesoma, how they threatened and bribed the girl to lie. As this revelation, Mmesoma's father, who was present, let out a cry and began weeping. He had truly believed his daughter was harmed, only to learn she was coerced into a lie. Mmesoma herself, standing in the crowd, hid her face in shame and relief, sobbing. She had been consumed by guilt as well, and now it poured out. Ukachi tried to shout over Eze. "He is raving, oh! He is raving mad! It's the Viva talking lies!" But his words carried little weight. He looked pitiable, sweating and desperate, slumped in the chair due to his crippled legs. When pressed by the king's guards, even Ukachi's tongue loosened. He started blaming Eze. It was his idea, but quickly changed to begging. Mercy, my king. My elders, I was misled by envy. I confess. It is true. All of it. We wronged Obidik and Aboma. Ukachi broke down in tears, shaking as the enormity of his sins became undeniable in the face of the assembled community. The palace courtyard was in an uproar. King Ohamadike stood, face etched with anger and sorrow. He removed his red cap, the opozo, symbol of his authority, and held it in his hand, a sign of deep personal anguish. The red cap is sacred to Igbo chiefs and kings, and to take it off publicly meant the king was truly distraught. What you have done, the king spoke slowly, addressing Ukachi and Eze, is beyond evil. You have spilled innocent blood by your witchcraft and shed innocent honor by your lies. You have brought terrible calamity upon your own kinsman and his entire village. Did you think the gods would not see? Ojiofo, Ojiogu. He who holds the staff of justice and innocence holds it. Obidik held that staff. You cast it down, and the king's voice trembled with emotion. Aboma, who had arrived and heard the confession, was openly sobbing, but these were tears of relief and joy mixed with lingering pain. The truth was out at last. Some women went to hold her, to steady her shaking form. She only cried, I knew it. I knew my husband was pure of heart. The assembly of elders decreed immediate actions. Messengers would be sent to the evil forest at once to locate Obidik and bring him home without delay. A cleansing ritual had to be performed for the abomination of falsely banishing an innocent man, for that was an affront to Allah, the earth, to punish the guiltless. As for Eze and Ukachi, their fate would be decided after Obidik's return, but surely heavy penalties awaited. Some called for their banishment in turn or even death, but Igwe Ohamadike raised a hand, insisting they wait for Obidik, the wronged one, to have a say if he lived. Aboma could hardly wait. She pleaded to join the search party in the forest, but the king gently dissuaded her. Daughter, we will bring him. The forest is not a place for you. Instead, he sent Obidik's uncle, some warriors, and the Dibia who had done the divination for protection to retrieve Obidik. They ventured that very day, armed with machetes, to cut through the undergrowth and charms to ward off evil spirits. Exactly 2 years to the day since Obidik had disappeared into the forest, a small band of rescuers now ventured in to find him. By their calculations, it was indeed the day his banishment tended to end, a fact that struck many as the destined time for truth to prevail. The search party followed a trail of old footprints and simple clues Obidik had left. Early on, he had scratched an arrow on some trees to mark his deeper path. As they delved into the woods, they called his name. Obidik! Obidik! Their voices echoed, but for a long while, there was no answer, only the cawing of distant crows. Deeper they went, their nerves jangled by the oppressive silence between their shouts. Then near a stream, one warrior found something, a small carving of a bird hanging from a tree branch. Obidik had carved a little charms for comfort. This encouraged them that he might be nearby. At last, after hours of searching, they came upon a crude shelter by a rocky outcrop. Obidik's little hut. Cautiously, they approached. A thin wisp of smoke coiled from the dying embers of a fire pit, and there, emerging from the thicket with a spear in hand, was Obidik. At first, Obidik thought his mind was tricking him. He saw figures that looked human, calling his name. Had the isolation finally made him mad? But as they drew closer, he recognized familiar faces. His uncle, some fellow warriors, they were real. Obidik was overwhelmed with emotion. He dropped his makeshift spear and rushed forward. The warriors, initially startled by the wild-looking figure, for he was bearded, hair matted, body clad in tattered remnants of clothes and animal hide, soon realized it was truly Obidik, alive, if changed. They embraced him, some laughing, some crying. "You are alive! You are alive!" his uncle exclaimed, tears in his eyes. Obidike's voice was hoarse from disuse. I am. It is me. Has the banishment ended?" His uncle smiled. "Yes, the time has ended. But more importantly, the truth has been uncovered. You are proven innocent. My son, the whole village knows of Ukachi and Eze's evil now. We have come to bring you home." Obidik stood stunned as the words sank in. Innocent. Proven. Home. He closed his eyes and silently thanked the heavens. He gathered a few tokens from the hut, one of which was Abomma's coral necklace, still intact around his neck, and then, leaning on his uncle's arms for support, for he was weak and unsteady at first on his excitement, Obidik began the journey out of the forest. Step by step, the trees became less menacing, the air lighter. When they emerged into the sunlight at the forest edge, Obidik knelt down and kissed the ground of Amoko's farmlands. He felt the warmth of the sun on his skin like a blessing. The news of his return had raced ahead of him. By the time they reached the main part, a crowd was gathering, with Abomma flying ahead of all, running barefoot, tears streaming to meet her husband. The moment Obidik and Abomma saw each other from a distance, Abomma let out a cry, a mix of joy and anguish, and sprinted towards him. Obidik dropped the bundle he was carrying and opened his arms. They collided in an embrace and sank to their knees, holding each other tightly as villagers encircled them at a respectful distance. There was hardly a dry eye among the onlookers. Even the stoutest warriors quietly wiped tears. Abomma stroked his face, sobbing, "You are thin. You've suffered so much, my husband. My love. Oh, look at you." Obidik shook his head, wiping her tears with his thumb. "I am alive, and I am here with you. Anyanwototum, my morning sun. Do not cry. Our nightmare is over." They simply held each other for a long time, the world around them applauding and rejoicing. Obidik was brought to the king's palace not as a disgraced man, but as a hero returning from a trial by fire. The king insisted he be given new clothes at once. Fine clothes was wrapped around him, and cool water given, but Obidik first asked for something. He requested to see Ukachi and Eze. The two valiants were dragged, in Ukachi's case carried, before him in the courtyard, under guard. The entire village seemed to gather to witness this reunion of wronged and wrongdoers. Seeing Eze frail and Ukachi crippled, Obidik felt a swell of pity despite everything. They looked utterly broken. Both of them cried the moment they saw Obidik standing there, hale. Eze managed to crawl on his knees. "Obidik, my brother, we were fools, consumed by jealousy. We did evil to you and Abomma. We don't deserve forgiveness, but I beg, have mercy. Let our lives be spared. The gods have already punished us beyond measures." Ukachi sobbed openly. "Cousin, I was wicked. You should hate me. I even tried to steal your wife. I deserve death. But please, take Think of our mothers who are sisters. Do not let me be executed. I repent. I repent. Silence hung as everyone awaited Obidike's response. By custom, he had the right to demand vengeance or severe punishment. Many expected he would. After all, who could blame him if he did? Obidike stepped forward. His once bright eyes were sunken from hardship, but they still held that noble spark. He spoke, his voice measured and resonant in the courtyard. Ukachi, Eze, you plotted to destroy me and nearly did. You killed my unborn child. You shattered our lives. And you made me live among spirits and wild beasts for 2 years. If you both were struck dead this instant, it would be justice. The crowd murmured in agreement. Ukachi and Eze cried harder, prostrating fully. Obidike continued, his voice rising. But I am not the gods. I am a mortal man who has seen darkness and been sustained by light. In the evil forest, I learned the value of a clean conscience and the power of truth. The gods themselves have avenged me with what you now suffer. He looked at Ukachi's useless legs and Eze's fevered eyes. Hear me, people of Amoko. I reclaim my honor today. These men have confessed their sins. Let the king and the elders decide their former punishment. As for me, I have no hatred left to give them. I leave their fate to the Almighty and our laws. I only pray that their souls find true repentance so that the land is cleansed of the stain they caused. The wisdom and grace in Obidike's words struck the crowd deeply. Many shouted praises for his mercy. Aboma, standing beside him now, squeezed his hand, tears of pride on her face. King Ohamadike, moved by Obidike's restraint and nobility, stood and addressed the people. Obidike has shown a heart greater than that of his enemies. Truly, he is a hero in spirit and deed. By my authority, I restore Obidike to his full honor in this community. His titles and rights are returned. Moreover, let it be known henceforth that Obidike is one of my closest counselors and mightiest warriors, a man of proven integrity. The people cheered loudly. As for Ukachi and Eze, the elders decreed that they would be punished but not killed. They were to be banished from Amoko indefinitely, for their presence was a blight and their safety could not be guaranteed if they stayed. Some youth had been sharpening machetes, whispering about taking matters into their own hands. However, considering their conditions, one sick, one paralyzed, the banishment was largely symbolic as a post-little further threat. They were sent to live with distant relatives far away, and all their properties in Amoko were forfeited. Mmesoma was forgiven by Aboma and Obidike. The girl came in tears to apologize. They comforted her, knowing she was also a victim of intimidation. The village decided to perform a ritual cleansing for everyone. The priests offered a ram in sacrifice to Allah to atone for the miscarriage of justice and to consecrate the ground that Obidike walked anew, as if washing away the past wrong. With justice served and honor restored, Amoko prepared to celebrate the return of their son Obidike and his reunion with Aboma. A great feast was declared by King Ohamadike. Word traveled to neighboring villages of the warrior's return, and many came bearing gifts or simply to partake in the joyous occasion. The king's palace and the village square were decorated with palm fronds and uli murals on the walls, depicting stories of victory and perseverance. On the appointed day, as the sun set in a blaze of copper and gold, the festivities began. The village Ilo Square was alive with music and dance. Drummers pounded rhythms on the Igba and Ogene, their hands a blur. The women of Amoko, dressed in their finest wrappers with blouses of George fabric, performed the graceful maiden dance. They moved in unison, shoulders rolling and feet tapping. Their waist beads swaying in hypnotic patterns. The men, not to be outdone, engaged in the Ohofia war dance, a dance of valor, to honor Obidike's trials and triumph. Dancers with painted faces and carrying spears leaped and kicked in formation. One lead dancer brandished a fake enemy head carved from wood, aloft, a symbolic gesture of victory, hearkening to the old tradition when a war leader would display the enemy's leader's head to prove triumph. The crowd roared in approval as they watched the performers emulate the bravery of warriors. Igbo warriors performed the spirited Ohofia war dance, leaping and brandishing symbolic weapons to celebrate victory and heroism. The dancers' vibrant attire and fierce movement reenact the triumphs of war, adding to the festive celebration honoring Obidike's return. Obidike, now baited and dressed in clean, elegant attire, sat by the king and elders with Aboma beside him. He wore a new Isiago tunic gifted by the king, and on his head a red cap, Okwozo, signifying that he was now an honored man in the community. Around his neck glistened a necklace of coral beads, and he had the carved walking stick of a dignitary by his side. Aboma was radiant in a fresh outfit, a flowing blouse with intricate embroidery, and a wrapper of bold indigo and gold patterns. Her hair was woven with thread and decorated with ivory clasps, and on her wrist were stacks of ivory bangles that clinked musically. She truly looked like a queen of the night, and her smile was brighter than all the oil lamps around. During the feast, the table overflowed with delicious foods: pounded yam and ofe nsala, white soup, jollof rice for a modern touch, grilled fish and spiced snails, and so many yams, roasted, boiled, made into fufu. For yam symbolized sustenance and prosperity. Gourds of palm wine circulated freely, and at a point, King Ohamadike personally raised a horn of palm wine to toast Obidike and Aboma. After everyone had eaten and the moon was high, the king signaled for quiet. It was time to impart the life lesson from the saga so it would be remembered by all. The elders brought forth the Ofo staff, a sacred symbol of truth and authority. The king held it as he spoke in a voice that commanded attention. My people, tonight we rejoice, but we also reflect. What happened to Obidike and Aboma must teach us all. Jealousy is a disease of the soul. Ukachi and Eze allowed it to fester, and it led them to betray their own kin and commit abominations. In Igbo, we say, Iro di n'ụlọ ka nke dị n'ọhịa njọ. The meaning is that the enemy at home is more dangerous than the enemy in the bush. Our brother Obidike's daring character could have been his undoing simply because those he called brother and friend stabbed him in the back. We must learn to quench envy in our hearts. Instead of envy, let each man and woman celebrate others' successes, knowing that when one of us rises, the community rises. He then gestured to Obidike and Aboma to stand beside him. Look at this couple. Through unspeakable hardship, they remained loyal and full of faith. Aboma did not abandon her husband, even when all seemed lost. Her faithfulness is a lesson to all wives and husbands. Love endures even the darkest nights. And Obidike, a man who could have come back breathing vengeance, chose forgiveness. Is that not strength? Forgiveness, when one has the power to punish, is the mark of a soul in tune with the gods. Wisdom. The ancient proverb says, "Ọfọ na ogu ga na-ahụ ndị naanị eziokwu n'ọnụ." The Ofo staff of justice stays only with the truthful. Indeed, truth and innocence kept him alive in the evil forest, and the truth brought him home. Aboma spoke then, her voice clear and melodious, carrying emotion. "I want to thank everyone, those who believed in us and those who have welcomed my husband back with open arms. We harbor no bitterness. Instead, our hearts are full of gratitude. This audio has taught me that what is built on truth will endure, and evil may win for a reason and a season, but will never prevail in the end. Chiekwe, Chiekwe, if God, Chukwu, and one's personal spirits are loud, no human can destroy you." She looked at Obidike, eyes shining. "I prayed every day, and on those hardest nights, I remembered an old saying, Chukwu na-enwe onye na-efu n'ọfịa, God who watches over the person lost in the forest. I knew the Almighty and our ancestors watched over you, Obidike, and indeed, they delivered you back to us." There was not a person present who wasn't moved by those words. Many nodded, and some women clapped softly in agreement, wiping their tears. The lessons were plain. Beware of jealousy. Stand by the truth, and value loyalty and forgiveness. With formalities done, the celebration resumed in full force. The drummers struck up even faster beats. A troop of masqueraders made a surprise entry, thrilling everyone. They were brightly adorned spirits with carved wooden faces and raffia costumes, embodying ancestral joy. They danced and playfully chased children, who shrieked in delight. This was a sign that even the ancestors were rejoicing and had come to party. One masquerade, representing the spirit of a great ancestor, approached Obidike and fanned him with palm fronds, a symbolic blessing, then did the same for Aboma. The crowd cheered for this theatrical but meaningful gesture as Obidike and Aboma joined in the dancing, surrounded by friends and family. The night air was filled with a profound happiness. Torchlights flickered, illuminating scenes of laughter. Elders telling stories of Obidike's father and grandfathers. Young men performing acrobatic dances. Young women singing call and response songs, praising Aboma's steadfast love. One old storyteller, Nze Arinze, spontaneously began to narrate Obidike's tale in a rhythmic chant for all to hear, ensuring it would become legend to further generations. Gather, all people, listen well to the tale of Obidike, who went through hell, a warrior bold with a heart, pure and light, betrayed by kin through jealousy spite. To the evil forests, our hero was sent, but the gods were watching. By heaven's consent, his wife Aboma, loyal and true, prayed to the spirit and saw him through. Evil did falter, and truth did rise. Now the wicked are humbled in sorry demise. So remember the lesson from this our story. Truth and love triumph over all wrongs. The villagers clapped and cheered, all dancing in a circle. The celebration lasted to the very late hours, as if Amoko wanted to squeeze every drop of joy from this hard-won happy ending. Under the canopy of brilliant stars, Obidike and Aboma finally walked back to their home, hand in hand, accompanied by a small outrage of friends still singing softly. The compound that had been so quiet and sad for 2 years was now alive with warmth. Neighbors had swept it clean and lit lamps, and someone had left fresh flowers on their doorsteps. That night, before they slept, Obidike and Aboma sat for a moment in their yard, watching the moon. Obidike pulled Aboma close and whispered, "Thank you for believing in me. You gave me strength even when I was far away. I felt it." She leaned her head on his shoulder. "We will rebuild our lives better than before," she said softly. In the quiet, They could hear the distant sounds of drums and a chorus of nocturnal insects, a peaceful symphony. Aboma looked up at the sky. "Our story will be told and retold," she said, fingers entwined with his. "May it guide our children and their children, so that no one suffers like we did at the hands of jealousy." Obidik nodded. "It will, and I will teach our sons and daughters to wear integrity like their skin, for it is a warrior's strongest shield." In the gentle glow of that night, Amoko village slept with contentment, its people safe in the knowledge that truth had prevailed. The spirits of the land were at peace again, for justice and harmony had been restored. And that's the end of Epic Tales of Obidik and Aboma, a story of a brave warrior tested by treachery, a faithful wife whose prayer moved the heavens, and the ultimate triumph of truth and love over envy and evil. The villagers of Amoko would celebrate this tale in songs, dances, and even in names of their children for generations to come. Forever hidden the life lesson, Onye mmebu ga-ala na mmebu, which means the doer of evil will surely meet evil's end, while he who stands with truth stands with the gods. And so, under the blessing of the ancestors and the smiles of the gods, Obidik and Aboma lived on, honored and content, proving that no matter how dark the night may seem, the morning light of justice and hope will always break through. The most important lesson in this story is that no matter how deeply envy, betrayal, and lies may bury the truth, unwavering love, integrity, and faith will always bring justice, expose evil, and restore honor in the end. And with that, my dear friends, our story comes to a close. But remember, the magic of storytelling lives on, waiting to whisk us away on new adventures, where the wonders of imagination know no bounds. Goodbye for now, and may your dreams be filled with joy, wonder, and endless possibility. Thank you so much for watching. Please kindly comment, like, share, subscribe to our YouTube channel for more interesting stories.